Hey folks, welcome back to the Luncheonette. We're excited to have Mr. Brandon Bing down from Nashville, but a local boy. How you doing, Mr. Brandon?
Oh, good, man.
Glad to have you. Tell us a little bit about you and, you know, how you grew up in the metropolitan area known as Samsula.
If we want to call it that. Wait, how many? Wait,
Metropolitan.
The Metropol. We got one blinking light here.
Right,
we got
right.
one light there.
So tell us a little bit about your music and, you know, a little bit about how Samsula kind of shaped you as an artist.
Yeah, you know, music-wise, you know, I had a lot of influences growing up. And, you know, I think everybody always, when you have interviews and stuff, everybody's like, oh, who's your influences? I think mine was more derived on just, you know, growing up in a specific lifestyle. And in Florida, you know, Samsula and just the surrounding parts is more of like old Florida is the way I would kind of categorize it. Everybody comes to Florida and they think about all the
Disney,
Disney and
Mickey Mouse.
Miami and Tampa.
Miami, yeah.
Right, yeah.
That's not it.
No, but the thing is, for me in particular, you know, I grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s. So a lot of my influence growing through school was derived around Southern rock, hard rock, metalhead, you know. And then I had a lot of family in Texas, so I had a lot of that Texas Red Dirt influence. But, you know, you got the old Fred Durst, you know, Limp Bizkit coming out of Jacksonville, and then you had, you know, Tom Petty, and you had 38 Special, you know, Skinner, all that stuff. So it was just kind of like taking that raw element of just kind of in your face, heavy drums, heavy guitars, and then stylizing it with the old, I was a big Billy Joe Shaver fan, man. A lot of people don't, if you're not a writer or I guess a enthusiast of the writing part of music, you know, you're just looking at the artists, they didn't really probably pay as much attention. But that whole Armadillos and Outlaws kind of vibe, you know, working with, you know, Elvis and Waylon and Willie and all that, it was a storytelling. And I've always tried to pride myself in my music and my catalog of really trying to be a storyteller, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Cool. Jordan's a local artist. We deal with quite a few local artists around here. Could you go into kind of like how the local music scene here in Daytona kind of helped you start your career and get you to Nashville?
Yeah, so, you know, and I think just like you as well, Jordan, you know, I mean, we did the Songwriters Festival, you know, playing those little pop-ups and having the opportunity to have local support in such a tight-knit community here is so important, because music is, you know, I was telling, me and my dad were talking one day, and we were just looking at, you know, you got 9 billion people on this planet, and you look at any genre of music, but let's just focus on country, you know, you got your Hot 100, you know, so it's like there's 100 slots. How, you know, when you really look at that as a under a fine tooth like lens, you know, you're like, man, that's microscopic. Like it's almost impossible to be a notable person inside of music and at all, you know. And so I think that really gives you something to fight for. So for me, it was, you know, spending times in those honky tonks, going down to the Barn in Sanford, going to the West End, going to places beachside over in New Smyrna, hitting those spots, going over to, you know, Full Moon or any place you could get a pop up, you know, just to be heard. Because in most places, coming from, even though the Daytona or the Volusia area, it's a beach town, it's a seasonal town. So when you're playing at any of these beachside bars, all you are is background music. You're sitting there with a acoustic guitar, you know, hey, here's the jukebox, play this, you know. You'd be lucky if you get a couple of slices of pizza or a shrimp cocktail and a drink, you know?
Right, yeah.
And it's really that difficult. So you really got to find the essence of how do you connect with people to make them a part of your, you know, your journey, your brand. If you're not a brand, you're not gonna have long-term success, in my opinion. You'll make a living, but making a living is different than having a career.
Yeah,
true. And what was that like moving to Nashville? Like you took what you learned here and then applied it to Nashville. What was that like?
I think it was kind of, that's an interesting question, right? Because I think that environment, so, you know, when I moved up there 5 years ago, I remember first trying to be heard, and I thought Broadway was the place. You know, I was like, hey, I need to go to Broadway. And I think everybody, you know, and I don't want want to say that again. People do have success and they stay on Broadway, but if I wanted to play the Broadway scene, I learned really quick, and I was fortunate. I realized that, without it like just dragging on for the last 3, 4, 5 years. I learned that in the first couple months. I played some rooftop bars and took advantage of some opportunities, like when Luke's 32 Bridge opened, or when Luke Combs was coming up. Like I found those little gaps, and I got in there quick, played there, and got some credibility around that space. But I realized shortly thereafter, I was like, wait, this isn't where I need to be, because every bar I'd walk in and out of was, hey, here's the Broadway 100. You need to know all these songs.
Right.
You need this. You're playing for tips. You're just, again, a jukebox, and you can do that. We can sit our butts down here in Florida and play, have our toes in the sand, enjoy all that, and be good and go home every night.
Don't forget Wagon Wheel. Don't forget Wagon Wheel now.
And that's the point, though. You have to find a way to connect. And I found the best way to do that in Nashville, if I'm giving advice to somebody that's going there, is surround yourself with people at these places. Go to these different songwriters, lounges, and listen to rounds. Go to writers' rounds if you're a writer. If you're not a writer, it's still kind of valuable because it's a good networking space. Mm-hmm. It's also good because the reason why publishing houses and labels exist is most writers don't sing, as play the artist role. Most artists aren't the writers. Yeah. And I feel like I was able to show a little bit more by being able to be adaptable in both spaces. I could add value as a writer and add value as an artist. And that's what I did. And I used that to really build my foundation.
Awesome.
Yeah, one thing, that I appreciate about you, because my first time in Nashville was kind of shocking, to be honest with you, because I'm dressed like I am now with a cowboy hat, and I'm thinking like 1980s George Strait, like everybody's dressed like that.
It ain't like that anymore.
But everybody was like dressed the same, like with chukka shoes,
you didn't
flannel
have your Jordans
shirts. Yeah.
Where's your Jordans or your dunks?
But,
right.
That surprised me. Like everybody was dressed the same, and I always.
All the girls got the white boots on.
Yeah, white boots.
White cowgirl boots on.
Broadway girl.
Broadway girls, yeah.
What bachelor party you at this week?
Yeah. But I was just shocked because I always worked under the impression in order to be different, you got to be different. And I'm thinking, how are these guys standing out in Nashville when they're like dressing up as twins everywhere?
Right.
It didn't make any sense to me. So it was kind of shocking. But I know you probably stick out in Nashville. And,
sore thumb.
And that's good. That's good. Like I said, in order to be different, you got to be different.
Yeah.
If it's a lot of the same thing, then it's not gonna work out for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of a good thing to think about too. You said you stick out like a sore thumb. Like when you are around in Nashville, like are you have you adapted to kind of like the Nashville like business models and stuff like that? Like, because that's the thing I do see around here compared to Nashville. It's like you touched on it earlier. A lot of people just playing around here. Like they're playing, they're making a living, but they're not making a career.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are, but like not making a career. Mm-hmm. In Nashville, it's all career. Except for on Broadway, mm-hmm. But like how can you have you adapted to more of that business side of things and the way of thinking as you've been up there?
Yeah, I think, and it kind of helped me just coming from like an entrepreneurial background,
okay.
Building and running my own businesses. I learned that hustle. I've hustled since I was knee high to a duck. I was always trying to find a way to make a dollar, and with the music, I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier, and I was like, hey, the people don't realize in this music space the importance of more than just playing the show. Everybody's like, oh, I'm the, I want to, I'm a road dog. I'm like, hey, I want to be everywhere. That's great. You can play. I could put you on stage tomorrow. You could open for Morgan Wallen tomorrow, or Luke Combs tomorrow, or Kenny Chesney tomorrow. That's not going to make you an overnight success.
Nope.
Yeah.
You're going to play a room. You're going to play a stadium, 60 to 80,000 people, and guess what? Those people aren't there to see you. Mm-hmm. They're there to see the ones that I just mentioned.
Right.
And so you might get a couple of story posts. You might get some people that tag you, maybe a few follows. Maybe you see a little bump in some streams. but it's not going to change your world. Why? Because they didn't buy the ticket for you.
Yeah.
They were waiting for you to play. Okay, yeah, that's great. It's nice to have a little bit of music, the background music,
Yeah.
while we're waiting for
Yeah.
everybody else.
We're
to
getting our
flood in.
popcorn. We're getting our drinks.
Yeah,
we're
they're buying the drinks. Like,
Yeah,
because
that's
most time you go to a show, no one's in the seat. You see these actually good, like openers or something. A third of the people that are going to be there are sitting in the seats.
100%.
You know,
And I think a lot of people come to town too with the impression of, I think twofold. One, they like the idea of, and again, it doesn't matter the genre, but they like the idea of being a mainstream artist. They want to be this, and they like the red carpets and the award shows. They're not looking at the business. You know, the business is, all right, if I go play a room, and let's say we play this club and there's 1,000 seats, we got to sell 1,000 tickets.
Yeah.
Now, what's your split? Did you negotiate 80-20? Were you lucky to get a 90-10, which is almost unheard of anymore?
Wow.
You know, or are you just straight hard tickets? Like, what does this look like? And then now you got your band, you got all your overhead. Well, where am I going to really capitalize? I better have some kick-ass merch.
Yeah.
Because my merch is going to be the thing that's going to make the people be like, you know what? I come to a Brandon Bing show. This is Hoss Nation. He's going to rock my face off, you know, for 90 minutes. When he's done, you know, I'm rubbing elbows, shaking hands. I'm talking to every person, listening to every story, taking as many pictures, signing as many autographs. And then guess what? I'm going to make sure that I double up. I'm not only going to just get the ticket, give you a great show. I'm going to sit there and sell you $50, $100 worth of merch per head.
Right.
Because I got to make my bag.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't make my bag, guess what? The next two-night town ain't going to look so, you know, prime, and it's going to be like, am I doing the right thing? It's going to look like the band that's going around in the van and never getting to the bus.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody thinks, I got to get a tour bus. Logistically, does that make sense? It might. Does it make sense cost-wise? At $1,000 a day? You do the math, partner.
Mm-hmm.
How much is $30,000, $40,000 a month sound to have that bus with that driver, you know, and break that down into your show count? You got to understand these numbers. They just understand. The only thing that a lot of these artists understand is I want to be on stage, and they just want to perform. And they think because they perform that they're somebody.
Yeah.
You ain't.
Yeah, I being in this business of media, I deal with a lot of publicists.
Mm-hmm.
And Nicole Zeller's a good friend of mine with Brickshore Media. Shout out, Nicole. But anyhow, we have conversations all the time about when is the right time for an artist to get a publicist. Mm-hmm. And lucky she's one of the good ones, because she'll tell somebody straight out, like, you're not ready, you know. But there's a lot of people in Nashville that'll be like, if you got the money, I got the time, you know.
Right.
Let's straddle this up. You're not gonna get anything out of it, but you know, I'll get my $1,500 a month, and you know, I'll be eating steak tonight. So how do you manage those situations dealing with, you know, like approaching management teams or publicists or any of that kind of stuff, you know, in Nashville that, you know, artists want to deal with? Just either make them big or because they actually need it, you know, make them feel big or they actually need it.
Yeah. So I think everything's about strategic positioning. So when I first came to town, 2019, I dropped Sunday Funday single. I did it down here. Shout out to my producer, Jeffrey Bowen. I did that down here in Florida, kept it at the root. Then I was like, went up to Nash, started working with Kenny Royster, direct him in studio. And he had, you know, I had that exposure building my first EP, did the Florida Man. Then I did Dying Breed during COVID. Then I wound up doing my Huckleberry album. And then after I did the Huckleberry album, that was the first chapter. I came up in a weird time because I came up in a space where I was at the barn in Sanford, played a show. I was like, man, I got a home turf show, and I had a great audience, and we had a blast. And I was like, man, this is we got everything together. You know, band's tight. And then 2.5, 3 weeks later, we go into lockdown. So we go into lockdown, and I'm like, all right, now what? All my shows, all my festivals, everything got canceled. I was like, the rug got pulled out from underneath me. So I'm like, well, what's next? So then I was like, well, shoot, I guess I got to keep creating. Made the next EP. Did that. COVID kept going. Got on every podcast, did every, you know, virtual tip jar or live, you know, stream.
That's cool.
I did everything I could because I was a no-name. And I was like, man, I had no followers. I'm like, how do I build an audience if I can't play hard shows? And everybody that was at the top of the food chain with their label deals and everything and the management, they were already there, but tickets with Live Nation, all that stuff was sold.
Yeah.
So all that stuff was sold, and they had to recoup they're like, well, we got to reschedule these dates. So when you're trying to play smaller clubs and venues, as things were slowly opening back up, it was so hard to get a date because unless you had booking or management, you couldn't get in. So you had to play home spots, trying to get in where you could, very small crowds, and you were constantly just like pivoting. It was a chess game constantly, and it got kind of overwhelming. So then I was like, well, at that point, then I decided I was using some publishing. I was looking at this, and then after I did the Huckleberry album, I pumped the brakes, and I said, this is what I'm gonna do. I said, I'm gonna go single by single, and we're gonna waterfall release this thing, and I'm gonna just test out these different groups of people, test out these songs, see what people like, and start funneling, refine, and make sure I lock in on my sound. So over the last year and a half, I've locked in on my sound.
Yeah.
I verified my branding, which my branding's always been the same, but I just elevated it. And then now where I'm at is like, okay, and now Brandon's got Brandon Bing. He's got Hoss Nation. He's got Bangtail Whiskey. He's got the merch. He's got the catalog of 20 plus songs out there. He's got, he's done the singles, the EPs, the album. So now Line in the Sand, chapter 2. Chapter 2, it's like they always call it like the sophomore jinx, right? They always say in music. So now it's like, I've proved proof of concept. I've sold hard tickets. I've had big opening opportunities, played big festivals. All right, cool. Now we got to figure out how we can make this monetize. And the way we're monetizing that is the best merch, asking questions, engaging with your audience, really making them feel like they're a part of your day-to-day. Because everybody thinks you got to have, I say this all the time, I'd rather have 1,000 super fans than 1 million followers.
Yeah.
Followers don't mean it. If you're caught up in the minutia of like, oh, I got to get 1,000 to 10,000 likes, and that means nothing. That's not putting money in your pocket. That's just a clout chase, you know? That's just like, here it's an algorithm. If it's putting money in your pocket, that's one thing. So let's figure out how do we turn these people, identify your real hard audience. Because if you get 1,000 people that really mess with you, well, what's the end game? They get you at a $25 hard ticket. That's $25K. You get 20% of those people to spend $50. That's $10K in merch. Now you got a $35,000 night. You do that 10 times a month. That's $350,000. You see what I'm saying? You do that over the course of 40 shows. Now you made 1.4 in a year's time. If you double up, you're at just under 3 million at 2.8. Now we're making a business.
Yeah.
That's the difference of how you really, so you need to find is, do you have those moments and do you have that product set and ready and teed up where it makes sense to do a press on a Country Connect or a Taste the Country or get on a Whiskey Jam or do whatever the case might be, Country Chord, you got to get into those veins and then you got to figure out, okay, here's my package. Now who's going to ride with me and believe in my brand? Who's going to parallel and ride that trajectory path to get to the top in booking and management? And what cut? Don't pay dollars. I messed up at the beginning. I paid money. Oh, I had money to spend. Oh, paid the money. Well, then I was like, no. Hold on, man. I'm paying you. You're doing this, but I'm doing all the work. So what the hell is that about?
Yeah.
So what we do, I'll show you how we'll flip it. We're going to put this into a percentage. So if you don't convert and give me this, you don't get a dime. But if you do, you get this cut. If you hold them to a percentage,
it incentivizes them too.
Sales.
Yeah.
They're selling you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's a lot of good information because a lot of people, for those of you at home and even some of you artists, like they don't understand the business end of what it takes to do what you do. They look at that, 2 or 3 or 4 hours here in Florida that they want you to play for $200.
Yeah.
And, they act like, you should be like dancing in the street for $200, but they don't realize the practice, the buying the merch. I mean, I deal a lot with merch. That's how we make a lot of our money here at Southern Fellow. It's not a cheap thing to get into, it's not, just, you just start it up and, the money rolls in. So, that's very good points. And I kind of want to branch off into that because you did mention your whiskey company, Bangtail Whiskey. And, especially for somebody like Jordan Redding who hasn't, made that branch off into, making a product, tied to his musical career. Like, when did you figure out the right point to make that happen? Like, you were doing music and then like, now I'm going to do whiskey. So what helped you make that transition?
So I did the decision. I dropped I dropped Sunday Funday back in 2019, and the same year I dropped the Sunday Funday single, and I was watching how it was gaining some legs, and I was watching how people were messing with it. I was like, okay, what's next for me? Well, I got to put a product together. I can't just come out of the gate with one single. I could waterfall, but I got to give them something tangible. So I made a CD. And so I did that Florida Man EP, and that's when I made the whiskey. I made sure that when I released that EP, that product was already ready to roll, lock, stock, and barrel. There was no delay. It was a hedge on myself, and it was a roll of the dice and a sacrifice because, like you said, just like with merch, buying inventory ain't cheap. Same concept. Starting a whiskey company is not cheap. You know what I mean? So I had to dig, and I had to really look under, like I had to look under, all the different layers and figure out what is this going to cost? What's the return? How quickly can I turn this over and make it double up? And when I saw that, hey, I could take this product and I can go out and play these shows, and now I have something that after you consume it, you're going to buy a ticket. After you buy my ticket, then that's all I get is the ticket. You buy my merch, you're going to buy a hat, a T-shirt. That's cool. But what's the difference? If you go and buy a bottle of whiskey, after you drink it, what do you got to do again? You got to buy another one.
Buy another one, yeah.
See what I'm saying? So now I keep Brandon Bing, and it says Bangtail Whiskey, Haas original recipe. It's all cross-branding. You got Bangtail, name of the whiskey. You got Haas original recipe, which defines like, hey, what it is as like a surname. Now you know what's Brandon's fan base, Haas Nation. So the people that are part of Haas Nation, well, why is Haas? Everybody calls Brandon Haas. That's Big Haas right there. Boom. It's all about repetition and recall. It's the 21 days to make a habit. The more you see something, just like that's why marketing and advertising on commercials the way they are. You have all these impressions. At that point, I made that liquor, and then I just went through the public, the audiences that I met, and the people that I came across through shows and anywhere I went. I just brought a bottle. And then slowly but surely, they connected the two. And the cool thing is, if you don't know my music and you go to my whiskey page, founder, Brandon Bing. Oh, wait, Brandon Bing music, and vice versa. Double up.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's such a good idea because, like getting them from all angles too. And country music and whiskey, it just goes together, it's a great thing. Yeah.
Country music, whiskey, and women.
Yeah.
Speaking of women, I know you got some good questions. What do you got over there?
What inspires your songwriting? Like, is there anything specific, or does it just
You inspire it.
Thanks.
Nice.
I feel so special.
Had to slide in there. No, all jokes aside. No, inspiration, real life.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been through hell and back in so many different ways that a lot of people haven't had a chance to experience in their lives, no matter how old you are, no matter what you come from. But for me, I may not ever be the biggest artist that will ever be in the top in country music. We'll see. I mean, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what I know that I have that nobody else has is I have the raw ability not only to be exposing uncomfortable truths, but also just sharing. Like you talk about vulnerability, you can be vulnerable on stage. There's a different thing when you're vulnerable inside the lens of your life to the point of where it's at the root of your core, right? When you've had buddies, and if anybody goes down the rabbit hole of Brandon Bing's catalog, they're gonna see the addiction. They're gonna see the people that have lost their lives. They're gonna see those stories. Mm-hmm. They're gonna see those images that make most people like just cringe. Mm-hmm. And not for me making them cringe, like, hey, they're thanking me. I can't tell you how many times men and women alike that I meet at shows, even kids. I got parents that bring their kids, and they come to my shows, and I'm like, dang, should you really brought your kid to my show? Because I'm really a 21 and up show, and I'm not an 18 and up, I'm a 21 and up. So then they're like, but when they come, they're like, man, that's the realest thing I've ever heard. And I'm like, yeah, because guess what? I don't leave anything untapped. I'm not here to be politically correct. I'm here to be correct.
Yeah, and people are hungry for that right now.
I think so.
People love that. Mm-hmm. And I think there's such a space for that in music. You see just like a lot of the hits that's been coming out some of them are really real stuff. Now, I think, if you go back a couple years, you'll look at how it's just kind of everyone's singing about the same thing.
Cliche.
It's
Sitting on my tailgate with my girl.
Oh my gosh,
watching the sunset.
Man. It gets so annoying. But then someone like you, other people.
Were you fixing to point at me?
No. I'm,
Why does everybody think I have a song coming out? I swear everybody was like,
no, but people want to hear that. People are tired of that just cliche stuff.
Yeah.
So you're killing it, man. So, you had said a little while back, you said like you refined your sound. And I think you have too. I listened to your music, and after we did our songwriters round, and it's really good stuff. Could you define that sound? And like when you're working with a producer, are you like, no, that's not it, or like how do you coach them?
Yeah. So in that space, what it comes down to is when you're doing those multiple takes, you're sitting there and every word, whether it's, has a purpose and a meaning. You're not just, if I'm just doing throwaway words, why'd I write the song?
Yep.
So for me, I'm like, what emotion am I trying to pull out of somebody when I say it that way, that harsh, and there's certain punches and certain runs that like have a different feeling.
100%.
And so I really focused in on that. And again, because of the fact of, coming into a space where I had dropped my first EP back in 2020 and having basically that 2-year stint where there was so much uncertainty across the board for everybody, I didn't want to pull out, all the different cards in my hand, I didn't want to show it. I wanted to figure out and save that ace of spades in my back pocket. So at that point, then I just basically was like, all right, let me give them a little taste. So from Sunday Funday was like my only little semi-pop-esque record. And the only reason why I did that because, I was so new and I didn't know what I needed to do. I was trying to navigate a muddy water situation. I was a small fish in a big pond.
Right.
So then once I made the Florida Man EP, it was that honky-tonk, Southern rock, nostalgia. And then when I got to the Dying Breed, I had like records like Back in the Woods in there that was like more robust, and then you had Dying Breed itself that really brought that Texas in there. But then I also showed my versatility as a writer and an artist by doing Old Josephine. And you wrote me a letter by taking someone else's personal experience that they told me. And during that bout of lockdown, then I wrote those songs for those people to show that I can go outside of my own world.
Right.
And then I went to the Huckleberry album. And the Huckleberry album was the defining point, because that was where I was able to let people know, hey, this is who I am. This is, this is Brandon Bing, like in this fool. And at that point, that's why when I did the song, the title track of that album, Huckleberry, if you listen to the chorus, it says, I said, long coat, 45 tucked in the cylinder of this blue chamber. I said, people around these parts know I'm Huckleberry because I don't waver. I'm the bounty hunter of these creeks, hollers, hammocks, and swamp. Pigeonholed you in a house of cards you can't get out of. Because it was my intent. That was my fire off to the industry. Like, yo, come and mess with me. I'm going to chop you off the knees and let you crawl. Because I have so much to give and I have so much gas in the tank that you can't, there's no water you could put on my fire that's going to put it out.
That's cool. Good
and
for
then,
you, bro.
And then from there, it just kind of stair steps. So now that we're out of all that, now it's like, here, the playing field is leveled. We got a blank canvas, and now it's time to just, punch him in the throat and let's roll.
Heck yeah. Get him. Did you ever, you had mentioned you grew up listening to like metal or like alternative rock or something. Same. So like, did you ever have a background in that too? And then you're like, nah, vocally I fit more country, or like how'd that work?
Yeah. So actually, what's funny is so I played drums growing up. I started playing music when I was 6. Like physically, I was playing cello first when I was in school, and then I was in church choir. Played drums for 8 years, and then actually that was through school up through concert band, did the whole jazz thing, and then we went to did praise band all the way till I was 22, and so I had all that exposure there. But throughout the years, I was always listening to everything from Drowning Pool to Nirvana, Anthrax, Weezer. It was Slipknot and System of a Down. I mean, it was just Puddle of Mud, like it was just in your face.
Right.
And I just loved just that energy. But the thing was, I wasn't the screamer. I can grunge.
Right.
I can do it.
That's
I have
funny.
done
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
I can grunge. But the thing is, I was just like, is that really is that my lifestyle though?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not like, I didn't dress like that, walk like that, talk like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I didn't want to ever lose my authenticity.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me just take those elements because I really respected those elements, and that shaped a lot of my my personality and my energy.
Mm-hmm. It has.
It does.
Yeah.
So I think having those that's the thing that energizes me. So making sure, the raw and the uncut in the production in the studio, I always make sure I have really heavy, guitars and heavy drums, and that allows me to keep that vein without sacrificing who I am.
Yep.
Yeah,
Love it. Very well put.
You definitely have some rock influences. That's
well, like you said, energy too.
Yeah.
Just like just being in the room with you and stuff. It's that in your face type of thing, and that's sometimes in country music it's a little bit more subdued. Yeah. So it's like young guys. I mean, we're probably the same age. Yeah. So like it's like, to me, that's not who I want to be. The soft like little country guy. I want to be a little bit more in your face and like energetic and stuff. So. Because my influences were very much the same.
Yeah.
So and my upbringing too, playing in church, concert band and all that good stuff too. So and starting with drums too. I started as a drummer. So
it's wild too. To your point too, I'm sure you see it the same way. Is like those influences. What's crazy when we grew up in that period, listening to those bands, it blows my mind. It's like Sublime. For example, his son took over now. And it's so crazy watching. That was like almost 20 plus years ago, I wasn't even born yet,
right.
Like when I was like looking at like when he was like at the peak of his career, and then realizing that he died, in his late 20s,
wow.
And then all of a sudden now his son's taking over, and just seeing that transition, but looking at so many of those bands like in Korn and Drowning Pool and Linkin Park and like those frontmen and stuff, they're, a lot of them, they're gone.
They're gone,
so it's like a dying breed.
Well, too, this is something to kind of think about. George Strait. Look at someone like him. How old is he? How old is George Strait?
George Strait's
72.
Almost 70.
Yeah, 72.
So, and he still looks great and he sounds great, and his music has aged very well. As in addition to him. You look at some of these rockers and stuff that's just rocked out their whole lives and stuff, and they might be the same age, but they're not holding up as good. So it's like there's one thing to have like the energy and stuff like that. It's that's the cool thing about country is like you can have that rock thing, but you can also kind of chill, have your little ballad song, have your little more songwriter type of song, and it's cool. I feel like country ages so well.
You can be like a little bit more diverse.
Sure.
You kind of can, yeah, because if you're a rock star and you come out with an album that's anything less than that, you'll be criticized so hard.
I mean, I think that was like one of the struggles with Queen. They kind of were trying to figure out for a long time like what they were gonna do, and then they came out with the Bohemian Rhapsody and all this other cool stuff. They were one of the few like rock bands that could do that. But like you said, if Nirvana came out with a ballad, everybody'd be like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think one of the craziest shows that I've ever seen. It just blew my mind, and I never thought I'd get to see him in my entire life because I never did. I was at a buddy of mine, Jeff's bachelor party. We were in Vegas a few years ago, and I remember we were walking around the strip, and we looked up and we saw like Bruno Mars. I think it was a Carrie Underwood or someone had like a residency. And then all of a sudden I look over and we all turned each other. We're at the MGM. They're like, "Oh man, the Eagles are playing."
Whoa!
I'm like,
dude,
no way.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude,
with
the best $200 I ever spent, bro.
Wow.
I got a ticket down a low bowl. I'm like, we're sitting there and it was insane. Seeing like Joe Walsh.
Yeah.
Dude, are you kidding me?
Legend.
Like he's up there just he sounds like he's 19.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is going on? Now that to me, like as far as like rock, like that element, like to be able to maintain that, that's like unheard of. Because to your point, so many are like worn out. I mean, you got someone maybe like, but he wasn't the front man, but like Slash, he's killing it still because of playing. But the main guys, it's so hard.
It's kind of more vocally, because some of these guys, they wrote their hits when they're in their teens or early 20s, and now they're in their 70s.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's not the same voice. You can't hold up.
No.
You know, so that's why sometimes country it just lends itself to a long, good career.
Yeah, you take someone like a Vince Gill, or you look at you know, or you
Reba
take
McEntire,
Reba
something like that. Yeah.
And then you got guys, for example, like I mean, you got Dolly, who's still putting out music.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And what I always appreciated about her is, as outside of being an artist, she was the visionary as an entrepreneur, building Dollywood, building her resorts,
she
building
is
these
too.
brands.
Yeah.
But then it's like when they offered her to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, she's like, well, wait a minute. You can't put me in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame without a rock album.
Mm-hmm.
And at least she took
She
it
did,
upon herself
yeah.
to go do that,
Yeah.
you know? And then you take someone like Willie Nelson, 92 years old. I mean, he's still doing it. His sons are, you know what I mean? Like
they're
there's so-
carrying, but he's still there. You still go to see the legend, and he's still there.
He's still there kicking.
He's releasing a new album. I just saw that.
You know?
Really?
I'm like,
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, he's
It's
not
like, this
done.
dude's
He's
gonna
not done
release-
yet.
He's gonna hit 100 years old.
I
and
know,
still have
dude.
another, you know?
It's crazy. Yeah,
It's like Clint Eastwood with movies. Like,
Yeah.
he's still going.
can Clint Eastwood still do another Western? I don't know.
What is he like? Clint Eastwood's like in his 90s.
Yeah,
He's
he's like
gotta be
92 or
90.
94 or
It's
something like
insane.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're gonna be hanging out a little bit later at a friend of mine's distillery, Copper Bottom, with Jeremy and Jenny. So we're gonna finish this off. I got one last question for you. Where do you see yourself in the next couple years? What's next for Brandon Bing?
The biggest thing for me right now is really trying to secure a good situation on the booking, like you know, booking management side.
Mm-hmm.
From the standpoint of just playing, like I said, I'm a road dog. So I mean, and I write and equally perform. I think you got so many people that try to say they do this and do that. Like, I'd rather be wherever I can have value. So, but ultimately, the people is what I enjoy. I like being in different towns and seeing different things around our country and in the world. But I say in the next couple of years, man, I think realistically I'll be able to be playing some pretty steady size, like mid-size or mid-size venues.
I can
Thinking
see
like
that.
some amphitheaters and stuff like that.
Good for you, man.
I just kind of want
I
to stay in
see it.
that vein.
Yeah.
The whole everybody's like, everybody is going to tell you they want to play stadium and do that. Man, like I said, if I can play the 5 to 15,000 crowds, dude, that's a steady career. I can spend enough time on my craft as a writer. I can work with brand partnerships, and I could really focus on trying to be a household name. And that's really where I would put my my eggs. You know, I want to have a good balance. I don't want to just go and say, hey, let me go straight stadium and this, because, you know, would I take it? I wouldn't turn it down.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, what's the value? Again, for me, I just stand on business. So I want to see the business side of it make sense. If it makes sense, then I'll do it. Like they say, you know, if dollars make sense, you know, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good grinding. You know, I mean, you've heard this. I'm sure everybody here's heard this. You know, as far as Nashville goes, you know, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. You know, and I think that's true. A lot of people forget about, you know, the years. You know, they think things happen in a bubble. They think Garth Brooks happened in a bubble. You know, but it doesn't happen that way. It takes grinding. It takes a lot of hard work, and it looks like you're heading in that direction.
Appreciate it.
I don't know how many years you've been in Nashville, but
5 years.
5
Yeah.
years. So hopefully, you know, hopefully the Lunch Net podcast can
We break you.
shorten
Come on,
that
just-
time in
That's funny.
Nashville.
Let's
But
speed this thing up.
We have to break first, but yeah.
Let's get that algorithm together.
yeah. So if you're listening Spotify or YouTube, you know, we need to really crank this thing up.
Right.
But we appreciate having you.
Appreciate y'all having me.
Please, guys, follow Brandon Bing wherever you stream your music or social media. Give them your call sign.
Yeah, so BrandonBingMusic.com. You check me out, Brandon Bing Music or Bangtail Whiskey on any of the social media platforms. And yeah, I'm on all streaming platforms as well. And as always, Hoss Nation, I appreciate y'all.
Heck yeah.
Thanks for dropping by the Luncheonette. We'll see you soon.
I love you. I hate you. Can't go through this shit anymore. Why can't I let you go? Trying to push you out that damn door. Got me hanging by a thread, mental tug of war. You drive me crazy, tearing up my heart and soul. Piece by piece you keep on breaking me to the bone, to the bone. Looking back at all the things you did to me, like hammering nails into the bark of my tree. Manipulation got you through all the pain you brought me. Chopping at my roots like an axe, trying to destroy me. You drive me crazy, tearing up my heart and soul. Piece by piece you keep on breaking me to the bone, to the bone. Scars remain from all the knife cuts you made. Got me chained to a stake from all your toxic ways. Double life in all your dirty little secrets. Got me captive like I'm the one to blame. Got me captive like I'm the one to blame. You drive me crazy, tearing up my heart and soul. Piece by piece you keep on breaking me to the bone, to the bone, to the bone, to the bone. You drive me crazy, tearing up my heart and soul. Piece by piece you keep on breaking me on to the